Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm coming from India. I brought greetings and peace to you from India. My friends have asked me to convey this message. So, next slide, please. So, my name is Nurdin. I'm at Indiolog Foundation. It's a peace-building institution like Atlantic Institute in India. And our title of the presentation is how Hizmet movement can promote respect for the sacred. Next slide, please. So freedom of expression is an essential pillar of democratic system, but also the respect for the sacred also should be given a thorough care, unless, as we have seen, Danish cartoon case, anti-Islam movie, and as well Quran burning controversy. These issues have widened the gap between two communities. It had also polarized communities in some sense. The question should be, are these filmmakers, cartoonists, and religious figures are aware of the true nature of the sacred aspects in Islam? Are they aware how disheartening it is? And would they have depicted Prophet if they have known what could have been the outcomes? And it's also important for Muslims, for themselves to ask a question. Are we also aware how depressing it is when the national flag of the United States especially, which is a sacred symbol of motherland, of a nation, is desecrated, is burned. It's very hurting. That also, as a Muslim, that's the same question we have to ask for ourselves also. And how disheartening it is when Bible is burned, even if it is carried as a retaliation towards insulting incidents. And the question is how far intellectuals, journalists, the general public are aware of the sacred elements of the religions. In fact, Quran urges Muslims not to insult deities of the religions, as in the retaliation Muslims also may face similar circumstances. Hence, it is duty upon Muslims to be exemplary figures in this respect. Next slide. Next slide, please. So the participants of Hizmet movement have established hundreds of dialogue institutions all over the world. So my paper will discuss how these institutions can contribute for the respect for the sacred. Our papers will have a three-part. One part will be discussed about the incidents of the violations. Second part will discuss about Gülen's opinion on respect for the sacred. And third aspect of part of our presentation will discuss what kind of endeavors the Hizmet movement can carry. In terms of past events, the shooting of the Charlie Hebdo cartoonist is the recent incident. Next slide. So, I am the Charlie was a slogan in the protesters. Next slide, please. The assailants were identified as two Muslim French nationals and were revealed that they had a strong connection with terror outfits. Motive of the attack is believed to be revenge for the honor. The Charlie Hebdo earlier attracted attention after illustrating the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. In Islam, bringing physical illustration of the Prophet considered to be an insult, and such gesture hurts religious sentiments of the world, Muslims all over the world. Next slide, please. So there is no justification for the terror. What could have been the circumstances? As killing innocent person considered to have killed entire humankind in Islam. So it's a very important ayat in Quran which tells that if you kill one innocent person, you will be considered to have killed entire humanity. Even insulting acts under the pretext of freedom of expression as this should be challenged through ideas, but not through violence, cruelty, and terrorism. So, Charlie, next slide, please. So, Charlie Hebdo used to sell 60,000. Next edition, they have sold 3 million. Again, is illustrating Prophet in their cover page. Next slide, please. And second incident is during 2012. It's an anti-Islam movie, which was shot by a person called Sam Basil, who actually was Nicola Basile. People were thinking that he's Jewish, and In fact, he was not Jewish. Next slide, please. So this movie was about depicting again prophet in very insulting manner. In fact, the actors who have played, as you also know, they were playing the script of Desert Warrior, which was initially written. The actors, they didn't know what was they were playing. Later in post-production, it was dubbed. Yes, next slide, please. When Arabic version was floated in YouTube, the reactions overwhelmed. Initial major protests started in US Embassy in Cairo. Group of demonstrators climbed embassy wall and tore down US flag and replaced it with black flag. And the burning of US national flag was in many parts of the world, which is also hurting. Another Muslim cleric called Ahmed Abdullah, to express his anger against the filmmaker, tore up the Bible in front of thousands of demonstrators and threw the torn pages on the ground. Someone took the Bible and burned it, which was also a very insulting act. And third instance is, next slide, please. So this is what Bible. Next slide, please. So prior to movie, a US embassy in Cairo have made a statement condemning the matter. Next slide, please. So there was casualties on many parts of the world, and 50 people were dead in these protests. Next slide, please. And the most shocking incident was in Benghazi, where the US ambassador was killed by terrorists, who was also believed that it was an anger. So some countries, they have made a positive reactions, like Pakistan, they have made a one-day holiday, Love Our Prophet Day, and it was a holiday in Pakistan. And India, there was a nationwide competition on Prophet's life, where Muslims and non-Muslims also they have participated in this contest. And it's the award ceremony where the Swamiji himself have come and given award to the winners. And the book which was used for this competition was authored by Fethullah Gulen. It was, the title of the book is Infinite Light. And more than 1,000 students and general public participated in this contest. Next slide, please. And the third incident is about on Dove World Outreach Center Quran burning controversy, where the pastor Jones, who wanted to burn 200 Qurans in July 2010, and then again there was protests all over the world. 20 people were killed and died. Next slide, please. Terry Jones was known to be an anti-Islamic figure from the past. As his intention of burning Quran became widely publicized, even the President Obama himself have condemned the issue, and especially the Muslim, American Muslims, they have taken a positive, civilized reaction. That is Love Jesus Day, they have called it Read the Quran Day. Even the Pontifical Council of Interreligious Dialogue, Vatican City, they themselves have then made a condemnation. Ban Ki-moon have made a condemnation. Next slide. Even US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton of then said it's regrettable that a pastor in Gainesville, Florida, with a church of no more than 50 people can make this outrageous and disgraceful plan and get, the world's attention. She also expresses it does not in any way represents America. 5 minutes, okay? So I have 5 minutes only. So, and there was a lot of condemnations. Next slide, please. And as you know, in Afghanistan, demonstrations went out of hand, and demonstrators attacked the UN office. Next slide, please. And there was a Danish cartoon case. I think I will skip it. Next slide. Next slide. I'm having less time, so I will skip it. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Yes. So, Hizmet movement, there will be a lot of presentations about Hizmet movement. That also I will skip. Next slide. Next slide. So Fethullah Gulen is an important figure in interreligious dialogue. It's his picture with Pope. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. So we'll stop here. During 90s, Gulen initiated dialogue and peace-building activities in Turkey under Journalists and Writers Foundation. Institute was for interfaith dialogue and peace-building. Next slide. And as an exemplary Journalists and Writers Foundation, today hundreds of dialogue organizations are there all over the world, like Indiolog Foundation and Atlantic Institute, one of them. Next slide. So what Gulen tells about respect for the sacred. He made one statement after Charlie Hebdo. He have criticized terrorism, and he have told that in Old Testament, in New Testament, in Vedas, Upanishads, and in any religious texts, there is no doctrine to curse the sacred. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. In 2013, Gulen also have made one article on respect for the sacred. Next slide. He tells, in terms of insults against the God, the Prophet, and the Quran, he argues that since they are not personal issues to be shown personal tolerance, individuals, believers, are not authorized to forgive insult and disrespect towards these sacreds. And suggests believers should express their feeling in civilized fashion, take their style as their honor. In respect to the churches were being attacked in response to Quran burning controversy, Gulen argues that this is another type of extremism. Next slide. 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 And he shared his disappointment that insults against religious symbols are considered to be freedom of expression, and in the case of ugly remarks toward other matters, it is considered to be hate crime, and he sees this as a contradiction. Next slide. Next slide. He further shares his wishes of international agreement on respecting the sacred, making respect for the sacred a thought honored by entire humanity, and international institutions joined by all nations settle this issue with clear-cut lines that will not allow further speculations. And he points out that unless we do not agree on this respect for the sacred, the future clashes may also prevail. Next slide. And also Gulen also makes one more article in 2012 in Financial Times after anti-Islam movie controversy. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. So here we'll stop. Please go back. So in this article, one slide back, please. Yes, here. So in this article, he makes a self-criticism and asks us, as a Muslims, have we represented Islam? Have we represented Prophet in a proper way? He makes a self-criticism in this regard and asks us, what is the rationale behind attacking an American consulate in Libya, killing an ambassador, innocent ambassador, and consulate officers who have nothing to do with this wretched movie? Next slide. How many minutes I have? 1 minute. Okay. Next slide. Next slide, please. So how Hizmet movement can promote respect for the sacred? As we have told, there are hundreds of dialogue institutions and peace-building institutions under Hizmet movement. And what kind of initiations Hizmet movement can take? Next slide, please. The first thing is Hizmet movement, and in partnership with other peace-building institutions, we can take respect for the sacred as a campaign. Like Save Water, the respect for the sacred also can be taken as a campaign. Next slide. So respect for the sacred can be seen as one of the pillars of democracy. Next slide. And academic research, academic conferences, seminars, panel discussions, and workshops can be organized to bring deliberations and research papers on the subject to enable more knowledge and expertise to be generated. Next slide. So, after conferences, it's important to bring resource materials on sacred symbols and values of world religions, which resources will be useful in further discussions. Next slide. And this matter can be discussed in international arenas and in international organizations like UN, EU, IOC, and the discussions can focus how violences through this respect for the sacred can be prevented. This can be discussed in international platforms. Next slide. So, this is the important part. After resources and materials are developed on sacred symbols, it's essential to focus what particular gestures and actions will really hurt the sentiments of followers of particular religion, as it will be wrong to accept all subjects related to religion as sacred, and as well it will also be wrong to classify all discussions and debates related to religion as hate speech. So we have to understand and decide what really hurts Muslims, what really hurts Christians, and the consensus to be brought, and this consensus be agreed upon a document, upon an agreement, upon a treaty, declaration. Like we have an European Convention for Human Rights, there can be also a convention that controls, monitors respect for the sacred. Next slide. Interfaith dialogue activities can be organized, because when somebody comes for interfaith dialogue, that's a culture where people respect each other. So if the interfaith dialogue activities are promoted, people will be more respectful to each other. And interfaith dialogue on the respect for the sacred can be the title of the interfaith event also. Next slide. Certificate courses. So we have research materials, we have experts on this subject. Certificate courses like workshops, like summer programs, like short-term courses can be organized for the students, for the general public. And after students, general public take part in these courses, certificates can be issued. It will be a motivating gesture. Next slide. And education. So respect for the sacred can be a part of education curriculum. It can be a topic in one of the social science books. And respect for the sacred also can be the part of the peace education programs. Yeah, so only last is remaining. The art contest. Next slide, please. The art contest. The peace building organization can hold competitions and contests to create awareness about subject. The poster competitions, caricature, cartoon, art, photo, and short film contests can be organized under the themes like freedom of expression and respect for the sacred. I respect sacred symbols, common sacred symbols and values. This can be the theme of the art competitions. Next slide. This is conclusion. I'm forced to end here. So dialogue institutions partaking in Hizmet movement and all other peace-building institutions, like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s peace institution here. So we can come together, take this campaign seriously, and it's essential. 1 minute. And it's essential to take this subject meticulously and to bring alternative solutions and projects that shall function as a wave breakers. If you have seen this picture, it's a wave breakers in the ocean to neutralize possible future unpleasant incidents. Thanks, sir.
Thank you so much.